Here we go.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen. Other way. Other way.
I'm Peter.
Yeah. He's Peter. Yeah. And greetings from, it's funny because you're in Alabama and I'm in Georgia.
Florida, Georgia. What's the Georgia-Alabama line? Or no, that's Florida-Georgia line.
Actually, today I was at one of the coolest places, and there's this lookout point where you can, it's a place called Rock City, which is just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And there's this spot, this lookout spot where you actually can see 7 states, supposedly. You could actually see 7 states at the same time. I am not so sure about that. I looked at it. It was very beautiful, but I'm not convinced that I could see all the way to Kentucky. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Tennessee is the state with the most bordered states, 8 total.
Yes. It's
and
very cool.
It stands to reason why so many people want to live there.
Well, I think I have actually found my sweet spot. I actually think this is the place that I think I have found my sweet spot after many, many years of research. I have my sweet spot, and that's good.
I think I adjusted my lighting pretty well. Keep in mind, I'm in a hotel, maybe a little noisy.
The bigger issue is my connection. The bigger issue is my connection, not your hotel lighting.
You did say that your connection wasn't going to be a problem today.
I said that I would have Wi-Fi. Okay, that's a different thing than saying I'm going to have good Wi-Fi.
Where do we start, Jen? There is clearly a lot. There's a lot that we're going to obviously want to talk about with Mr. Cohen.
Can I tell you one thing first? I have to tell you what I saw today driving towards Chattanooga. Outside of a little town called Chickamauga, and we're going. Can you stop fussing with your camera?
I'm not.
Can you stop fussing with your camera? Okay.
I'm just moving some stuff
I'm
around.
driving through this town up to Rock City, and I come across a house on the main street, and these people, I shit you not, have an Israeli flag and an American flag hanging on their porch. Now, I assure you, there is not a Jew within a mile of that place. At least, I mean, like farther. So that has to be Christian Zionist. And I was thinking, how would his neighbors feel if he had a Chinese flag and an American flag, or a Russia flag and an American flag on his porch?
Well, because they're hypocrites, because the dear leader will tell them that it's okay to have this particular flag, but not that other flag. And the same thing applies on the Democratic side. If they tell you to wave the Ukraine flag, they'll wave it like a bunch of, chickens.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. I am definitely in MAGA country, without a doubt. Like, it's Trump and Vance everywhere as far as I can see. And yet, ironically, this is sort of like the place where I would be, because I think those people keep away the people that I'm trying to get away from. The people that I'm trying to get away from don't want to come live with the Trumpies. They don't want to be anywhere near the red stuff, which is perfect for me.
Well, their way of life is much more laid back, refined. It's not in your face. They're not rude people.
Rusty, I know Chattanooga has a large Jewish community. This was sort of south of this wasn't even in Tennessee yet. It was sort of still in Georgia. It was a little town called like Chickamauga. I assure you.
No, but there are people that are part of the evangelical movement who believe
that's what it was. Also, I have yet to see a Jewish family in my life that has an American flag and an Israeli flag outside of their house. They would have an Israeli flag, but they wouldn't have an American flag.
The one thing that we can cover prior to Mr. Cohen arriving is it is finally official. Hopefully it'll be official unless he decides to keel over in the next, I guess it'll be a year and 10 months, but Senator McConnell has officially announced that he will not be seeking re-election for the U.S. Senate next 2026. So what that means is that we are certainly hopeful that Thomas Massie will make the move for the upper chamber. This is as wide open an opportunity for him as there could possibly be. He has an amazing following, and he also has, a reputation of being somebody who is willing to work with all sides, not both sides, but all sides of the political spectrum on issues that matter. And it's a lot different when you are one of 100 votes versus one of 435. So our support is definitely for Thomas Massie to run for the U.S. Senate in Kentucky, should he decide to do so.
Well, I mean, we just, sometimes I think people assume that everybody is seeking higher and higher office. And I don't know that that's true. And I don't know if he has said anything about that. Or you're just assuming that that would be, I mean, you and I might like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's his agenda, right?
I don't know what his move is, but when I think about the prospects of what's currently available in the state of Kentucky, to me, it just strikes as a, bless you. It seems that of all the times that an opportunity like this could present itself, if he's ever going to make the move, this is it. His stock is extremely high, and it's not going to be a progressive or a non-corporate representative.
Exactly.
Other than
Colinello, you're getting GOP. This is someone who's not corporate bought, right? Like it's not like you're getting a progressive leftist in that seat. Like that's not happening. The best you're going to do is getting at least you'll have Rand Paul, Bernie Sanders, and Thomas Massie. You'll get a third person in the Senate that isn't owned by a corporation.
By the way, you want to talk about how desperate the Democrats are? They're trying to get Andy Beshear to run for the Senate. And all I'm thinking is you could easily derail whatever opportunity his career could possibly have in terms of running for president, which I believe he will do. And look, he's as decent a Democrat as there's going to be. There isn't many.
Who?
Andy Beshear.
Oh, so yeah, he's fine.
So the talk is that Andy Beshear might run for the Senate on the Democratic side. Obviously, if he does run, he'll get the nomination. And the question is, will it be him versus somebody like Thomas Massie? The one thing is that if Beshear does decide to run for the Senate, that the Democratic machine is going to put tens of millions of dollars into his campaign coffers to try to win a Senate seat.
As far as you don't know that if Beshear decided to run, Massie doesn't necessarily. You don't know that Massie necessarily wants to have that seat.
He may not.
I don't know
possible.
that. Right.
No, Kentucky's a big state.
Running for that looks like, yeah, exactly.
No, it's a lot of territory to cover, obviously, but again, it's slim pickings in the world that we live in today, where we're not as focused on electoral politics, at least not at the federal level. But this is certainly something that I think is a big deal. You know what's an even bigger deal? The person who has created some of the sweetest, tastiest, most charming sweet treats in a box, or a carton, I guess you would call it.
It's so ironic hearing you say that when you don't eat sweets.
I don't have my mask. Otherwise, this would have been an even more appropriate introduction. But I'm going to impress the founder of Ben & Jerry's a little bit as I channel my favorite senator from Vermont and let him know that our good friend is going to join us now to talk about why the political revolution is not dead, despite what other people may think. And he's going to let us know what his favorite flavor of his own ice cream actually is. Ben Cohen, welcome to Generational Change.
Nice channeling. That was beautiful. You do an excellent Bernie.
Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to meet you. I don't think you have any idea. Like, this is like one of the coolest things ever. I mean, I would say next to Oliver Stone, we had Oliver Stone. This is my second like best thing.
All right. Yeah. I'll take it. Second fiddle to Oliver Stone. That's pretty high up there as far as I'm concerned.
So I remember when I was like, I don't know how, so I was born in 71. But I remember a Ben & Jerry's opening in Hallandale Beach, which was like Hallandale, not on the beach, but in Hallandale. And I remember that it was an actual store, and it was like the coolest thing ever. And my mom got me a Cherry Garcia ice cream cake. Had it made for my mom. That was always my favorite flavor. I'm very old school. This one here has a whole other thing, but he doesn't even eat sweets.
But he makes an exception, I trust, for Chubby Hubby or Chunky Monkey.
Oh, I like that too. No, he'll tell you.
All right, I have one ice cream that stands above the rest, and it kind of has what I would consider a good innuendo meaning to it. So take a guess, Mr. Cohen. What's my
You
favorite
will
Ben and
never know.
Jerry's
And
food?
it's not old school either. He doesn't know the old school.
Well, there was Bernie's yearning. I mean, that was a beautiful flavor.
He's never going to guess because it's one of the new things.
I don't know the new.
Half-baked
Half-baked.
was
You know,
an
half-baked
absolute...
is now flavor number one. It has ridden to the top of the hit parade.
How
you
trendy
like
of
jam
you,
apples?
Peter? Because that's so trendy of you.
Eat that, Cherry Garcia.
You know, you were always you and what your company represented to me was like, and I actually went to advertising and marketing school, and we always studied in terms of companies that were not just ethical, but were really looking at the big picture of sustainability, environment, and labor, like the whole big picture. And no one else was doing it. And that was, to me, I just very impressed. I mean, other like Paul Newman's and Newman's Own, like your whole thing. It's like, yeah, it was very inspired.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, living your values is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That, of course, is one of the rare things that we see, just as Bernie was a very rare bird in the political arena, especially 2015, 2016. But you, as a very successful entrepreneur, is also a very rare bird. You are actually somebody who many might even suggest is a traitor to his class. And that is something that has become a huge problem here in this country, because as we've seen, I mean, you've obviously seen a lot more than we have over the course of your life, but we've seen this trajectory heading towards full-blown oligarchy, which is what we sit in now. And now you literally have somebody like Elon Musk who is standing up next to the president of the United States, basically saying, no, we're the ones who are in charge. And I'm sure you've probably seen over many years that we were kind of trending in this direction, probably ever since JFK was assassinated. Did you ever think we were going to get to this point where it's just completely out in the open? Nobody is hiding how they really feel about what really controls the United States at this point?
No, I never did think it was going to get this bad. You know, Bernie's been talking about oligarchy and the country being run by oligarchs for, I don't know, probably 20 years at least. And, you know, it used to be, I mean, this is, you know, what they call, end stage capitalism. I mean, this is the epitome of unfettered capitalism, that capital keeps on moving into the hands of fewer and fewer people. And you have a situation where the 1% or the 0.1% owns more wealth than the bottom 90% of the country. And it used to be that, you know, those capitalists were influencing who got elected through campaign contributions. And now they are the people who get elected. I mean, they used to be influencing who was running the government, and now they're actually running the government. So, you know, it's not a democracy.
No, I don't know that it ever was. Certainly not for everybody. Like there's never been a time where this country has actually been a functioning democracy for everyone in it, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's pretty true. You know, I mean, it got a lot worse when the Supreme Court made two different decisions. One is that corporations are people, and the other is that money is speech. And once you do that, essentially, corporations have all the same rights, the same Bill of Rights that regular people have. And money is free speech. So, yeah, everybody can say, you know, everybody can talk, but, you know, people who have enough money can drown out everybody else.
The thing that we've been focusing on for a while is how do we build the type of labor movement that we desperately need that is going to get us out of this? Because electoral politics, while it's still important, you know, we're not the type of anarchists that are telling people to stop voting. That's way too dangerous. But this idea that we're just going to elect our way out of our problems is completely foolhardy. And that's why we have to be focusing on how do we coalesce the working class of this country. Do you see it in the same light?
Well, yes. I mean, absolutely. It's the working class. It's the bottom 50% of the economic ladder that have been getting screwed. I don't know, for the last 30 years. Regardless of who's in power, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. And, Bernie certainly understood that. And he was honestly talking about that issue and honestly working to do something about it. Trump understood that whole 50% of the population is incredibly pissed off because they've been screwed year after year after year, and he started mouthing the words. And what was the choice? The status quo, or somebody who says he understands what the problem is and he's going to make it better?
I think people are desperate, and I think when people are desperate, they're going to cling to whoever. And also, there is this sort of thing about people like this sort of I'm going to kick ass and take names approach, and it gives them some feeling of security. I mean, obviously I think it's a false sense of security, but I think they feel that, that this is somebody who's going to fight for us.
Yeah. I mean, what's going to happen is that there's going to continue to be the huge shift of wealth from everybody else to the wealthiest people in the country. Going to be huge tax cuts for the wealthy, but he's going to throw some crumbs to the people on the bottom, and they're going to say, well, I did better under him. He cut my taxes.
Yeah.
There's also something to be said for why so many people are embracing the sledgehammer known as Doge right now. And I think people need to understand, it's like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. I'm like, millions upon millions of people in this country have gotten to the point where they don't care anymore, where they would rather see it completely, that the whole system just completely decimated beyond repair. And that's where this whole Trump being the human Molotov cocktail, as he's often been referred to as, is that people hated DC establishment politics more than they hated the crass bullshit politics that is Donald Trump. And
I think that's right.
Yeah. And that's still something I think people are still trying to come to terms with.
People are craving authenticity and attitude. There's now marketing research that has that data quantitatively. And what we had in terms of politicians, except for Bernie and Trump, were, these kind of blow-dried politicians that were, saying virtually meaningless stuff, supporting the status quo, and mouthing the words that their political consultants tell them to mouth. That's totally meaningless because, don't say this because you get attacked. Don't say that because you get attacked. So it's like, don't say what you believe in, just kind of muddle along.
So as somebody who was very successful founding a big company and did it ethically, when you hear things like there shouldn't be billionaires, or, and then there's no such good thing as a good billionaire and all of that. And I think back to what you were saying about like Citizens United and these regulations that have, or lack thereof, that have allowed this to happen. But I think that at the end of the day, people either want to or not screw over people. So if those rules had been in place when you were doing Ben and Jerry's, right, and you were doing that business, you wouldn't have then thought it was okay to screw over your people, right? Like you wouldn't have then thought, oh, now we could get away with it, so we're going to do that, right? So I think that it's more than just that people can do it. It's that people want to do that.
Well, When we started Ben and Jerry's, we didn't have any intention of being a big business. Jerry and I were two failures. I failed at becoming a potter. Nobody would buy my pottery. Jerry couldn't get into medical school. And we said, well, let's just try to start a homemade ice cream shop. And, our idea was that we wanted to run a business the way regular everyday people on the street would like to see a business run. A business that cared about them, that cared about the community, that wasn't trying to exploit people or their employees or the environment. And we ended up doing that. We were actually kind of surprised. We didn't think that we'd be successful with that idea, and people really like it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you're a national hero. You're a national hero to every cannabis partaker in the United States. I mean,
well, thank you very much.
I can remember I was a senior in high school, and I remember the first time that I ever had it, because I was a senior in high school and I was hanging out with friends, and the next thing you know, it's like the pints come out of the freezer. It's just and I'm telling you, that has been duplicated millions upon millions of times over. So I am sure that when people recognize you and they approach you and they tell you, thanks for making my late nights a heck of a lot more fun.
And you know what's funny is there was this place where when I went to school, I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder. So to give you an idea, like that's me. And there was this place called Dan's Cookies, and you would get a Dan's dozen with a pint of Ben and Jerry's, and they sold it as late night snack. Oh, brilliant business model. And this was in like 89, like 90, right? And it was awesome. It was awesome. I appreciate it. Does it make you sort of sad at all to, like, now that you're not in it with any anymore, like that the company isn't the same?
Well, the company, was this little homemade ice cream shop, and then one thing led to another, and we started producing the ice cream in pints, and it, ended up being distributed all over the country, and we became a publicly held company. We had originally sold shares in the business just to Vermonters, our neighbors. And then we went public, and our idea was to be an anti-corporate corporation. And then we hired the wrong CEO, and he arranged things so that the company ended up getting sold to Unilever. That was in the year 2000, and that was, pretty much just about the most difficult part of my life. I mean, I was extremely depressed after that. I tried to keep the company independent, and I lost that battle. And I figured that, that was kind of the end of the social mission of the company. But I was kind of surprised that, under the ownership of Unilever, the social mission, kind of continued to thrive. I mean, the problem was that, in terms of the increasing concentration of wealth into fewer and fewer hands, all the profits were going to Unilever. But the company was I think still did a good job of using its voice to speak out for justice, and integrating social concerns into how we did business.
Yeah. That's you know what? You set a model and you set a standard. So even though this is not that same company anymore, it set that standard. And everyone, like, that was a whole new thing. I mean, it was really revolutionary.
Yeah, I think, business's line had been that, we can't help to meet the needs of the community because then we'll go out of business. It's not possible. It's impossible for businesses to address social issues, social problems, and still be profitable. And Ben and Jerry's put the lie to that statement, and then consumers started asking, started expecting more and more from other corporations, and I'm pretty proud of that.
You should be. I've seen a couple of times in the chat, people are saying that it was the rule that about 4 times the highest person doesn't make 4 times more than the lowest paid person at the company. Why don't we see that now? Why can't we have people doing that now?
Wait a minute. You don't think hold on a minute. You don't think it's right that Mr. Cohen makes 300 times more than his lowest paid employee? I mean, come on, Jen. You're just not being realistic about the way things are these days.
I swear.
Well, when Ben and Jerry's was starting to become a larger company, the salary ratio, the spread between CEO pay to line worker pay was 40-1. And Jerry and I were kind of outraged by that. And then we came up with this 5-1 salary ratio. And, as the company got bigger, it switched to a 7-1 salary ratio. And, now there is no salary ratio. But like I say, at the time that we put it into effect, the standard in the country was 40-1. Now I believe it's about 350-1. And I mean, when I was working on the Bernie campaign and he made a statement that billionaires shouldn't exist, I wasn't really sure about that. And, the more I've thought about it, I think it's right. Nobody needs $1 billion. And the problem is that the system, what they say is the system isn't broken, it's fixed. The system is rigged. Yeah. And it's rigged to have all of the wealth go into the hands of a small group of people. And that's systematic, and it was set up that way, and we can set it up different. It's not that way in every democracy. It's not that way in every capitalist country. What we have in our country is unfettered capitalism. There's no restraints on it. Kind of because we've said that money is free speech and corporations are people. So the corporations control the legislation, and the legislation ends up favoring the corporations and the wealthy.
I guess my question is this. This is my question, though, okay? So it's almost like all the best intentions. You start out with a small little company, you have the best intentions, but as it grows and you need more capital and it keeps coming in and you end up now being public. So it's like, is it possible? Is there a point when it stops being possible for companies to be ethical in terms of size? And is that because now they're serving shareholders?
No, I think it definitely is possible. We didn't set up the legal structure as well as we could have. We thought that we had made it so that it was not possible for us to be acquired, but we were, and we didn't do it right. I mean, the best example of doing it right, I guess, is Patagonia. Okay. And there are a bunch of other companies that are owned by nonprofits. So I think it is definitely possible, and now, after what happened to Ben and Jerry's, there's a new form of corporation called a B Corp. And those corporations, by law, have to take into account the benefit of the community into how they do business.
Yeah. So it's possible. Okay, that's inspiring. It is possible to do that.
Yeah.
Which is why I've said time and again that if the only way that capitalism can survive and thrive is if it's blended evenly with socialism. There is no other way. You look at any other nation around the world that is successful at blending the two ideologies together. Australia, Japan, Germany, a handful of others mixed in.
Scandinavian countries, right? Social democracies, absolutely.
Exactly.
You can be. I mean, what we have in the United States is corporate capitalism, and
not free market.
Totally not free market. And what they have in those other countries you mentioned is social capitalism, social democracies versus corporate democracies.
And I think the best example that I could give in relation to your business is simply this. If we lived in a true free market system, your ice cream would be measured with whatever other ice cream that has succeeded over the years in terms of a national name recognition based on taste. Could be Haagen-Dazs, could be Breyers, etc., Klondike. And in the field, in the open market world, in the free market world, it would be based on the quality of the product. And that's what would win. When multinational corporations take over, like I've been saying, the bane of our existence is private equity, especially how it's taken over housing and a lot of other elements of our lives that they should have no part of it. But if a private equity giant takes over Ben and Jerry's ice cream, their concern is not the flavor of the ice cream. Their concern is the bottom line. How can we squeeze as much profit out of whatever we're selling and have the lowest amount of costs in order to do so? And that's where the dilution of the product comes into play. And so if that is corporate capitalism in a nutshell, I think most people would understand that. Most people would understand that if there is a Ben and Jerry's in Burlington, Vermont, that is run by a family farm with the cows and the whole thing, the quality of that ice cream is going to taste 1,000,000 times better than anything that they're going to grab out of a supermarket in, wherever USA. There is that difference, that corporate difference, that I think more people need to recognize, because I think the dam's going to burst at some point. I don't know if we have reached the point of no return, but I do think there is a loss in confidence in just the system overall by so many people that I don't know how you get it back unless there is a dramatic change in how business is done. And right now, it doesn't look like we're anywhere close to that. In fact, it almost seems like we're trying to go over the cliff right
now. Well, look. Are we going to get businesses back that are actually making good products and aren't maximizing profits at the expense of the quality of the product? I think you find that in smaller businesses and in, as you said, family-owned businesses. I think that there's a tremendous number of businesses that are just trying to focus on maximizing profits. I mean, at Ben and Jerry's, what we did was we set up a 3-part mission, which has a social mission, a product mission, and a financial mission. And what we said is that the 3 of them all work together. They're all mutually supportive. I mean, if we didn't have the highest quality product, the financial mission would suffer. If the business wasn't growing, we wouldn't really be able to do much in terms of the social mission. And the reality is that customers really like it when you support the community. I mean, we didn't think that it was gonna end up selling ice cream, but it does.
Yeah. I think it sells everything, quite honestly. It's a good thing to do. Like, I found that as a candidate. It's like when you're doing what's right for people and they know that you're doing what's right, you get support even when people don't always agree with you. And that's what's so fascinating. Like, that's my goal. Like, I love that in our chat, we have everything from like anarchists to conservative Trumpies and Republican, like all of it in our chat through the whole spectrum. And I love that because those divides are not serving us in the class war. And that's what I want people to really understand. Like, we need to get out of these divisions and start recognizing that this is a class war. And people need to have each other's backs. And so I we fancy ourselves kind of like, what do I say? Cross-pollinating. I like to cross-pollinate with, with different people. And that's
I think that's absolutely right. I've been working on this issue of the Pentagon budget and the idea that 50% of our entire discretionary budget goes into the Pentagon, preparing to kill millions of people. And what I'm discovering is that the people that agree with this cross party lines tremendously. I mean, some of the best partners that we have to work with are libertarians, Republicans. I was amazed. I was walking down the street. I was in Florida recently. I was in Delray Beach, walking down the street, and I ran into the Lyndon LaRouche people. I mean, these guys were really, really weird. But I mean, they're talking about shifting money out of the Pentagon. They're talking about how all of our wealth is being used to kill people, and we shouldn't be trying to take over the entire world. There's a lot of people from all sides that really realize that, this idea of the United States controlling the entire world, I mean, that is the policy of the United States, is absurd, screwed up. Obviously not putting ourselves in other people's shoes. I mean, would we want some other country to be controlling us? I don't think so. And the way our military is set up, I mean, in black and white, the strategic policy of the United States is to be militarily superior to the entire world. We have the divisions of the Pentagon. You got the one that's responsible for keeping control of Europe. You got the one that's responsible for keeping control of Africa, the one that's responsible for keeping control of the Pacific. I mean, we have 800 military bases throughout the world. The country that has the next most has like 10.
Yeah. I call it, I say it's the caucasity of the whole thing, just the absolute caucasity. It's like we have our warships sitting up China's butt and up Russia's butt. And I'm like, can you imagine? And I said this the other day, like, what if China put their warships in the new Gulf of America? Would we like that? Would we be like, oh,
no,
that's
that would
just
be
great.
really terrible. We totally can't have that. They'd be in a lot of trouble, believe me. Speaking of,
you got this guy here who can be anybody.
He does three really, really well. You've seen two of the three. He does Bernie, he does Trump, and he does.
Well, don't forget who ruined this country, Ben. I know you used to support me way back in the day, and boy, did I hoodwink the shit out of you.
I've been thinking lately of Ross Perot. Were you guys around for Ross Perot?
I'm old. I'm a little older than him. I'm 12 years older than Peter. So I was born in 71. So I definitely remember Ross Perot.
So, I mean, this is a guy, I mean, whatever the heck else he was saying that this free trade stuff, this North America free trade agreement,
yes,
is gonna send all of our jobs to Mexico. And he said that, that big sucking sound, that's going to be all of our jobs going there. And the government did that. And they did the same thing with all of our jobs going to China. They did it for the benefit of the corporations. The corporations do great. Buy low, sell high. Get your stuff made in the places where you pay the least, where they have the least environmental regulations, and then sell it at a really high price here in the U.S. And now what the politicians are saying now is China stole our jobs. No freaking way. We gave them to them.
When I look back on where I think Bernie was at his strongest, but also his weakest, he was able to identify exactly what the problem was. He was really good at it. And I thought that his high point as a candidate came the night after he won the Michigan primary. And they came down to Miami to do that debate. I had never seen a candidate box another candidate into a corner for a knockout shot. And that's what he did to Hillary. He nailed her on everything. And when he pointed his finger at the camera, he says, I didn't get $250,000 for a speech from Goldman Sachs. He said I was dangerous, and he's right. I am dangerous for Wall Street. And I'm thinking, yeah, and he needed to continue to follow through on that. But where we stand today, we look back on what Clinton was able to do to this country over the course of the 1990s. NAFTA, normal trade relations with China, the Telecom Act, the crime bill, and the worst one of all, the removal of Glass-Steagall. And it comes full circle today. The Democratic Party is basically Reagan's Republican Party. And the Republican Party is now Trump's authoritarian party. And we do not have any real semblance of a social democracy, even a little bit. And so of all the people who, again, his social commentary is kind of out there, but I will give credit where credit is due. Stephen A. Smith, who is in a completely different world when it comes to sports, which is more my jam, but he made this statement on Pod Save America the other day, and it really resonated. And it's getting the Democratic Party establishment really uncomfortable right now. Good, because they have a lot to do with why we're here.
Are too busy trying to pick candidates for the American people instead of listening to the American people tell you who they want. The last Democrat that the American people told you they wanted was Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton, it's her turn. Bernie Sanders had momentum. It's Hillary's turn. Joe Biden captured momentum because Representative Clyburn got involved in South Carolina, saved his behind, but it's really his turn, okay? He has no business running for re-election, but everybody went for it, knowing he was supposed to be transitional. He's going to be 81 years of age. Then you sit up there. He doesn't have a primary. Then he goes on the debate stage, embarrasses himself. Then y'all still let him take 3 damn weeks to walk away instead of getting the hell out there immediately so you can see if there's somebody other than Kamala Harris who could be the Democratic nominee. Then she gets the nomination, and everybody wants to act like she's the rock star all of y'all wanted all along. Oh, my God, let's throw up our hands and just to say, hey, she is the one, when you know good and damn well that wasn't the truth.
It's not wrong.
No,
No,
not at all.
It's, totally right. Yeah, the Democratic Party does not represent the people. It represents the corporations. It represents their donors. People say the Democratic Party is kind of Republican light. It's always amazing to me that the Republican Party always kind of runs to the right. They get more I don't know. I mean, they get more corporate, or they get more. They move to the more extreme end of their party, and for Democrats, that would be the progressive end of their party, and Democrats never move to the progressive end because they're funded by the same corporations, and they wouldn't get any donations from the corporations if they started preaching a progressive line.
I am in commercial real estate. That is my life's work. I find that you have a choice to be ethical or not ethical. And when I think back to everything that transpired, and I don't want to assume that you knew this or didn't know this, but Jen did run for Congress twice against Wholesome and Schultz, and I do give a lot of responsibility to her. I think she bears quite a bit of it because I think she was politically ambitious in her own way. I think she was anticipating a cabinet position as high as Secretary of State and was willing to do as many unethical things as possible to kneecap Bernie over the course of that run. But I will tell you, there was something really special about 2015 and 2016. It really captured the imagination of what this country is capable of being if it wants to be. I mean, I knew people that were setting up makeshift campaign offices for Bernie in their house for no money. They believed in his mission. They believed in his message. I wish we could recapture something like that again. I'm not convinced it's going to happen anytime soon in electoral politics, but I do believe that the energy is still there. The working class is desperate for change. We just have to figure out how we're going to get there. If that takes offering mini cups of Ben & Jerry's ice cream to every person who wants to get involved, then I say, damn it, let's do it, if that's what it takes.
I wish you still had control, because I had put in a flavor suggestion years ago. And I had this idea for a breakfast flavor that would be like a coffee and donuts and bacon thing. But,
you know, I think there's some potential there.
Coffee, donuts, and bacon. Well, they say that bacon makes everything better, but, you know, to each their own, depending on whether they're meat eaters or not. Please ask Ben about Stampede, Stamp Mobile. Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
What is that?
The Stamp Stampede is a group of people that are stamping paper currency with stamps that say things like stamp money out of politics, or not to be used for bribing politicians, or not to be used for buying elections. And people, you know, we had a stamp mobile that was going around the country that was, you know, it was kind of this Rube Goldberg machine that was doing the stamping to call attention to it. But you can go to stampstampede.org and you can get yourself a stamp and you can make your statement on paper currency. That's what I do. And, you know, once there's enough of us and once there's enough paper currency stamped, you know, because it's getting a little easier to stamp a higher percentage of paper currency now because there isn't that much of it around. I think we'll make a statement that the powers that be can't ignore.
We have maybe we left the sweetest topic of the night for last, for obvious reasons, because this is deep and there's a lot to cover here. First, I want to say thank you for being a very outspoken person against the genocide in Gaza. It takes a lot to speak out, especially as a Jewish American, where it does seem that the culture has sort of a code of silence in many ways, even though most do not agree with what's going on. And we see how the Zionist movement has completely they've blended this notion that Judaism and Zionism is one and the same. And that is a very dangerous place to be in. And one of the people who, of course, has been totally guilty of doing such a thing, if anybody has not seen this video yet, hold your stomach. Even Ben & Jerry's ice cream can't save you from this one.
Can I get a selfie?
Sure.
Free Palestine!
I don't care about Palestine.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. But he's also very honest, including his wife, Jessica Seinfeld, being a huge, huge contributor to the IDF. Gives a lot of money.
Have you always been aware of that? Like, because I was raised very Zionist as a Jew from South Florida, and it took me a long time to deprogram. Like, I've talked about it for years now. Like, it wasn't that recent, but it's like, I don't know, in South Florida, if you were Ashkenazi Jewish, you were raised to love Israel. Like, it was all connected, and it wasn't easy to unsee it. Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I was raised to believe that, the Jewish people needed a homeland. They were persecuted and after World War II, and that there was this place, this desert that nobody was living in, and they gave this land, this really barren land to the Jews, and then what I was told was that the Arabs in the surrounding countries saw that the Jews had created such an amazing society that they got jealous, and they started making war on the Jews. And yeah, I mean, it was really, it wasn't that long ago. I don't know, maybe the last 10 years or 20 years that I began to learn the truth that, well, what do you know? There were people living there, and they got kicked out. But I mean, what really drives me crazy and has driven me crazy is the way Israel has treated Palestinians. I mean, you know, you didn't have to stick them in an open air prison. You didn't have to make it so that they can't earn a living. But I mean, the Jews became the oppressors, and you know, that doesn't really work. People don't like being oppressed, and they rebel against it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think. It's like people were so shocked that humans don't enjoy being born in captivity. Maybe human beings don't want to be born in captivity. Maybe they're going to rise up against that. You know, I mean, if I were born in Gaza, I think I'd be setting shit on fire. I'm pretty sure that I would be set. Like I cannot, this is why it's like, you cannot judge or ever be in a position to judge how people respond to their oppression, you know, and what methods people use to avoid being oppressed. And I am a very by any means necessary person. I used to be a lot more soft-spoken and like about like in terms of like violent stuff. But now I'm just like, no, they're committing violence against us every single day. Denial of healthcare is violence. All of these things are violent. Not letting people have homes is violent. And so it's like at some point it's going to break. And I just, at this point, they've made violence sort of necessary.
I told Jen that I was going to mention this. I've said from the very beginning, as an outsider looking in, this is definitely much like our economic and political strife that we deal with in this country. This is a class war, first and foremost. And I do believe that a significant portion of the people who advocate for the Zionist cause come from the affluent class, not the middle class, not the upper middle class, but the affluent class, the people who actually make decisions in society. Somebody like Jerry Seinfeld, who is a billionaire. So I had commentary with this lady that I know who lives, if you were in Delray Beach, she lives in Wellington, which is not a bastion of the Jewish population in Palm Beach County by any stretch of the imagination.
No, there's a large Muslim population there.
But she has just constant posting about the bring them home and the, you know, this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but what I will read you is the most important message that I got from her. And it had to do with, it's wrong to blend the message of Judaism and Zionism because they are not one and the same. And so her response is, Zionism is the right of Israel to exist. It has that right. Learn history before thinking Palestinian Muslim extremist pieces of shit deserve it. They are technically Jordanian gypsies and deserve nothing. And this is a person who I know professionally, who if I ever put them on blast would probably be in a lot of trouble. But they're everywhere. They're our neighbors, they're our friends. And I also think that there's a part of people, particularly like yourself and Jen, in the Jewish community who don't, in some cases, know how to speak up. Because Jen is, if you haven't even mentioned it yet, but you got ostracized.
It's not ideal. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely people that aren't talking to me now that used to be talking to me. But that's just, you know, but then again, I look at it like those are people that I don't want to be talking to. It's like, if you're okay with a genocide situation, then I don't want you in my life. So I don't particularly mind being blown off by people that support the concept of genocide. Like I actually appreciate knowing who those people are.
Seinfeld is very open about it, but then you take it in another direction. The question is, do you want people who support the Zionist cause to be open about it? Or do you want people who are against the Zionist cause, but go along with it because it is good for their career? And Jimmy Kimmel was the other person the other night who got caught in a similar situation.
Play free Palestine? Oh, free Palestine. Oh, what? Free Palestine. Yeah.
Just like that. It's like,
What is that?
I can't say that. That might get me in trouble.
Those are cowards and corporate whores.
So who's worse? I think is the question. Who's worse? I would say the people that know better and they choose to basically be cowards about it. Jerry Seinfeld has always been a fucking asshole. That's not a new thing. That's like,
you don't know Ben to be friends with him. You should stop saying that. You have no idea.
I just don't care. And he doesn't care. But you know what I would care about? You know who I know is a nice guy that I really wish would say something? I know that Jason Alexander is a nice guy. And I really wish that if he doesn't think that way, I would love to live in a world where Jerry, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not good. Not good, Jerry. Now that would be great. But we don't have that. We really don't. And that's the sad part. And that's the thing that's scary, because I don't know how much further they think they're going to be able to take this and get away with it. Because at this point, the danger is, I feel that the Zionist state, Israel, is dragging the United States down with it. Because you've said, Jen, this is not going to last. This is eventually going to disintegrate, however it's going to be. Your thoughts, Ben?
I guess I'm against violence. I'm against economic violence. I'm against the way Israel has treated Palestinians. I'm against the terrorist acts on October 7th. I think violence always begets violence. It's a downward spiral. And it was Martin Luther King who said that darkness cannot wipe out darkness, and hate cannot wipe out hate. Only light can wipe out darkness, and only love can wipe out hate.
I would definitely agree with that. So where do we go from here, I think, is the great question.
Well, if it was up to us, we would have just finished Bernie's second term, right? Like, if it were up to us, we would be not in the Back to the Future 2 skewed timeline of like Biff Tannen, right? Like, we would be in all of us here would be in that whole other alternate universe.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that there was a significant overlap between Bernie supporters and Trump supporters. They were both anti-corporate. They were both, at least rhetorically, in terms of benefiting the little guy. I personally have no doubt that, if the Democratic Party had not put their fingers on the scale, that Bernie would have won the primary and that he would have won the election versus Trump. I think mostly because the American people are compassionate, basically. And I think Bernie's was more a message of compassion and love, and Trump's was more a message of hatred and anger.
Yeah, the big difference is they are okay and they prefer people kicking down. And one of the things is like, I just want everyone to aim their anger and frustration into the correct direction, which is always up. Like, that's the key thing, is that just aim it in the right direction. It's not because of immigrants. Like, your problems is not because of immigrants and Muslims. That is not the cause of your woes. So that's one of the things I think is most important that we do here, is keep reminding people to punch up.
Yeah. I guess one of the big things that was also drummed into my head as a young Jew was that the Jews were scapegoats. throughout history. And now immigrants have become scapegoats. Black people were scapegoats. And yeah, it's
let's make billionaires scapegoats, because that's really what it is. I mean, it's one thing. That's the thing that I think people still can't wrap their heads around, that they should try to, is that getting to $1 billion is insanity. $400 billion? It's like money's not even real anymore. What are we talking about here? I know Bernie is a friend, perhaps a dear friend. I will tell you that I still think perhaps his best moment was in the summer of 2015, when they were deliberately blacking out his campaign. And he gave a speech it was a school in Virginia. It wasn't Liberty University. This is another school. That speech at Liberty was great as well. But there was a school that he gave a speech to, and there was a young Muslim woman that came up on stage in tears talking about the bigotry that she was dealing with. And I remember Bernie summoned her over. He gave her a big hug. And this was the first time he addressed the entire crowd and letting everyone know that I'm Jewish. And he did it in a way to say that I will be a uniter as president. This violence, this broken system, I may not be able to fix it, but if all of you come with me, I will be your sword and I will lead that charge in a way that no one else is going to do it. And that was one of the best moments I've ever seen and I don't even like saying a political leader. Bernie is a public servant in the truest sense.
I think that's true.
Despite the disagreements that obviously Jen and I have had with him in terms of the direction he felt that he needed to go in over the last few years, he's still the person that lit the flame. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. Jen wouldn't have run for Congress. I wouldn't have been involved in the capacity that I'm involved in myself. And we owe it to him. We owe it to him to still fight, because he made a speech on the floor of the United States Congress in the first Gulf War by himself, saying that this war is not a good idea. This is really, really stupid. And he was all by himself. And I'm sure at times he still feels like he's by himself. But if you can give him a message from Jen and I to just let him know that we love him and we appreciate him, and that even though there are things he's done that we don't agree with, he's still somebody that is very near and dear to our hearts, because he got us to start to see things in a way that we never saw before. That was not even possible. But he directed us to the real problem. And I think everyone should be grateful for that. Even people that support Trump, who hate how broken the system is, should be grateful that Bernie started that conversation. And it means the world to us that he did it.
Yeah, he's my favorite politician. And like you say, he's not really a politician in the normal sense of the word.
No, for sure.
Thank you for being an ethical businessman and leader in your own right. Thank you for making the best sweet treats. I may be biased because you're here, but I'm really not. I think Ben & Jerry's is the best ice cream. And I feel that what you embodied about ice cream is what I embodied about life, because I'm a very healthy person. If you're going to have ice cream, enjoy it.
It has to be bad. It has to be bad.
Yeah. Don't just get vanilla or chocolate.
There's nothing wrong with it's not the flavor, it's the quality of the ice cream, Peter.
Yes, but why get chocolate brownie or vanilla chocolate chip cookie dough when you could get it together?
That's so millennial. Like, you're so millennial.
Before you go, I know it's hard to pick one, but let's say pick your top three.
He wants you to tell you your favorite.
You know, I'm a Cherry Garcia guy.
Thank you.
Always will be.
Told you, Peter. Booyah. Told you. I said he's probably going to say Cherry Garcia. It's exactly what I said. Told you.
Guys, if you are not currently, I would tell the people to go out and buy the ice cream, but of course it's more important that whatever causes that you're involved in. Guys, the links are in the description. If you are not currently following Mr. Cohen on social media, make sure that you do. Cannot thank you enough for coming on this evening. Your conversation really means the world. And the fact that you, in your position, have spoken out for the causes that matter most, especially to the working class of this country. Thank you for always doing that. And we certainly hope to see you again down the road.
Sounds great. Good being with you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Ben.
Bye-bye.
Great man.
That was cool. The Cherry Garcia ice cream. cream. Oh, it was totally cool. Well,
All right,
first
so
of all,
you
have to
win.
understand,
So
you
you
don't
win.
know. Like, I went to Boulder. I was a deadhead, right? Like I've seen the dead in multiple locations, multiple times, right? Like, that's the thing. So the fact that there's a company making ice creams in that flavor at that time was so cool.
Before we continue, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of entertainment while I do the plug. Jen, where were you the other day?
Oh, guys, I am Snow White. Okay, so I was on my friend's property in South Georgia, and with another friend, and I shit you all not, this deer. This is only one of so many pictures. This deer came up to us, let us pet it. We were touching its feet. I was playing with its ears. This deer, they don't lick, by the way, like dogs. This deer put its little snoot up and nuzzled my face multiple times. This deer, it was the most ridiculous thing. And so we asked someone who lived in this area, like, is this normal? Because I've been at places and I've seen deer and they never and this guy said, no, that is not normal, not ever anywhere that the deer comes out. It was crazy. This was the coolest thing ever. It was very cool. Anyway,
I think you should be a
that was my
fortune.
experience a few days ago.
I think you should be a fortune teller as far as I'm concerned. It does seem that you
Why?
kind of call these say, because you seem to know like what's going to happen, like what the trends are going to be, like how
I'm
this is
very,
gonna-
very clairvoyant, Peter. You should know this. And it's because, look, the deer like me.
Are you a deer whisperer? Damn it, Doug! I don't know who said it first.
I honestly, he went up to Rachel first, and I was being careful because I didn't want to scare him. I don't even know if it's a him. I don't know. I didn't flip it upside down. But this deer wasn't scared of us at all, like at all. And the only thing, it kept looking around like it was looking for something else that might hurt it, but it was not scared of us. It was the cutest. I can't even. I have a picture of its little snoot right up at my face. I never got that close. It was other than like in petting zoo. I've been to petting zoos when my kids were little, where they'll have a deer in there. Totally wild deer. It was unreal.
If you like this wholesome content like this, make sure to get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We have lots of wonderful guests still on the horizon and getting our schedule set, but we certainly hope that you enjoyed the conversation this evening. We do have
there were no antlers. Philip, if there were antlers, I wouldn't have gotten near it. I have a personal rule. I don't attempt to touch things that have sharp parts. Okay? Beaks, claws, antlers, no. Horns, no. I don't approach things that have sharp parts. But really, the deer, it doesn't even have big enough teeth. Like I've never heard of a deer attack that without it with antlers. So I was good. Thank you. My friend Rachel took it. She takes really good pictures of me. Thank you guys.
Yes. And apparently
I don't know if it was a female. I don't know. It was only about a year old. The guy who we told about it and showed the picture said it was one of last year's babies. So it's a young or an older juvenile because it didn't have its spots, but man friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have a new friend. That deer will remember you if you ever come back.
Well, we're going to be back there tomorrow night. And I actually think that it'll come back because that's its place to eat.
Have you? Well, there you go. So clearly there was a limit to how far Mr. Cohen was willing to go on the subject of Israel.
Look, that's generational as well. You know what I mean?
And that's
He's like Bernie. He's like
I
Bernie.
didn't want to completely put him on the spot, but I'll put you on the spot. So probably the biggest suck off of Israel in the United States Congress in the Senate has to be John Fetterman. Fetterman staffers.
He does it. It's almost like though he's going out of his way to overdo it. He's so ridiculous about it. It's so like it's almost campy. Like
Well,
it doesn't
it's not even a question of it being campy. It's a question of what have we noticed about a lot of these people? You know, the one thing we didn't talk about.
Doug, I'm not in Florida. I'm in Georgia. Continue.
One of the things we didn't talk about with Ben that will, obviously wouldn't have been, it's more of a taboo subject anyway. But the thing that I can still remember. I was obviously young at the time, and so were you. But I'm sure you remember very well the spring of 1994 when Jerry Seinfeld was 38, dating Shoshana Lonstein, who was 17. And
I
Lord
remember.
knows when he actually met her. But technically, in the state of New York, if I remember correctly, the legal age of consent in New York is actually 18. It's not 17. So Jerry Seinfeld is technically a pederast. Now, you could say that he's.
No, I, as somebody who has done criminal defense and who understands the difference and nuance and context, no, I will not let you call Jerry Seinfeld a pederast. Sorry.
So the definition is clearly defined based on pre or post pubescence, is what you're saying.
It's based on so many variables in terms of context. Okay. I don't think he's ever done anything that intimates he's attracted to children.
No, I agree with that. No, well, that's what I'm saying.
What a pederast is. A pederast
so then I
is
shouldn't have used
somebody
that term.
attracted to children. Like, I don't think Matt Gaetz is a pederast. I think he's lechy and gross and going out with girls that he ought not be. But that's not the same. Again, nuance is important here. Continue.
The point I'm making and the reason I brought that up is because you just brought up a very important point about Fetterman. He has an incessant need to overcompensate his love for Israel. And what that tells me, when you look at most people, it's kind of like the incessant commentary that comes out of the likes of somebody like Ted Cruz, is that they're overcompensating for something. There's something that there's something that they're hiding. Perhaps there's something in Fetterman's past that he doesn't want anyone to know about, and he believes that by sucking up to the Mossad, that is what is going to protect him. That if his
overthink that so much. I don't think that.
So then what is his motivation?
I think he's just like Trump, and he's just likes getting a rise out of everybody to some extent. He's like sort of leaning into being the bad guy. It's like he kind of likes it. I'm not sure that it isn't as much of like how we had Manchin in cinema. And now you've got Fetterman. Yeah, really. But he's the baddie. He's playing the part. I don't know how much of it was he's always been this way versus he just sort of found his niche. I have no idea. But I think you're giving it you've gone way down a sort of conspiratorial rabbit hole. And again, I'm very Occam's razor. Right? Like, so what's the most logical explanation? You're off talking about the Mossad. I think he's just being a suck ass because he's figuring out what's best for his career, whatever direction, whatever marketing, whatever branding.
What career does he really think he has when the guy is a complete ogre? He's 6'9", he's 350 pounds, he doesn't dress properly, and I'm not one to say that he can't.
But that's his branding.
But where does he ultimately think he's taking it? I mean, I understand that he's a U.S. senator.
You're asking me to get in the mind of like friggin', Uncle Fester?
No, but the truth is that he holds a significant amount of political capital. He's in, perhaps, arguably, the most consequential swing state in the country. And so because he's in that significant of a swing state, there's a lot of different things that he can employ based on the amount of power that he can wield. And that's also the power of being in the U.S. Senate. You get 6-year terms. And unlike somebody like Sinema, he is actually somebody who is, I mean, I'm not going to automatically say that he's not going to win re-election if he chooses to go in that direction. Everyone is convinced that if he runs again, that he's going to lose. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, it depends on who he's running against. Everything comes down to, it's all relative. Everything comes down to what the other option is. What's the other flavor?
Well, you've also said that the Democratic Party, for all intents and purposes, electorally is dead and is probably dead.
I do believe that.
So
I think dead nationally. I do not think that you will see another Democratic president.
So then the other question, so that it comes down to this variable in a state like Pennsylvania. So if his reelection is not until, was he elected in 20 or is it 22? Yeah. Is it 20? Guys, was Fetterman?
No, he
Fetterman
wasn't
was
the same year as us. It wasn't the same year as us.
No, I'm pretty sure he was 22. Yeah, so he was 2022.
Yeah, we were already doing the show.
So if he runs for re-election in 2028, the next presidential election, you really think the Democratic Party is going to put 50 million plus on the line for a drag them out primary against Fetterman? I don't see it. So there's that. And then
I don't know. And he's the kind of guy also, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he switched parties either.
switch parties. No,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me either, especially if the
Exactly.
Democratic Party is a sinking ship.
Which it is. Which
So,
it is.
yeah.
And in a state like Philadelphia, if he was capable of winning in any regard, right? Like, let's just assume he would win re-election. He would win it as an independent as well as he would win it as a Democrat. Kind of like Bernie. He'd be able to win Pennsylvania as an independent if he had support. It wouldn't matter what his party was if he had support of his home state. That's what I'm saying. So he could switch. He really could. In Pennsylvania, at every state, you are going to watch the United States turn to all red. California might be the last holdout, but they're all flipping because the Democrats are being out-registered everywhere, and no one is joining that party. That's young people are not registering to vote as Democrats. It's not happening. So rarely. Most people are no party. Second is Republicans, and third is Democrats. Some states more than others. And so they're going to run out of people to support them. It will happen. They are dying. And so I think all states inevitably are flipping red, other than ones that you might be able to now start seeking running as independents in some states. But yeah, the Democrats are dwindling away. You're going to see less and less.
What I think is even funnier, and this is kind of where the value of this type of commentary comes into play. You know, we played the clip a little earlier of Stephen A. Smith. And I think you and I would both agree that his commentary was pretty spot on in terms of what the electoral manifestation of the Democratic primary ultimately ended up becoming. Yeah. Well, James Carville, of course, had to stick his nose in. He just can't help himself. James Carville tells Stephen A. Smith to stop running his effing mouth about politics. Don't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Let me tell you something. We know that.
This I would consider. Sorry. This sounds like a good plan. Okay, continue.
Well,
then they get health care.
Yeah, all the more reason too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here's what Mr. Carville had to say.
No, I am a big Stephen A. Smith fan. I remember I saw him some years ago on TV, and I said, man, this guy's coming in hot. I don't know how long this is going to last. The truth about it, he's really worn well with me. He's very outspoken. Look, he's like anybody else that does any kind of commentary.
Why don't you just say well-spoken while you're at it, Mr. Carville? He's a well-spoken black man. Oh, you know you want to say that. Oh, he's got it. He is Southern fried, whatever.
Sports commentary. Listen, he's sometimes wrong.
No, keep going. Play it. Finish it.
Way more times he's right. I find him to be off. When it comes to sports, I find him to be really insightful. When it comes to politics, he don't know his ass from a hole in the ground. He's on that running his goddamn mouth about how he may have to run as a Democrat because there's nothing left of the Democratic Party. There's no talent. Stephen A., are you shitting me? I mean, you say you're friends with Wes Moore and you say you're friends with Josh Shapiro. Well, I'm friends with both of them. I think they're really extraordinary, talented people. I got news for you, dude. There's 6 or 7 other people in the Democratic Party that are just that talented. So before you start running your fucking mouth off about politics, a topic of which you really don't know anything about, you ought to sit back and think about it and call some people and run it by them. But don't let your political stupidity stand in the way of your outspoken and I think often insightful views when it comes to American sports, of which I think you are an expert at. And if you know Wes and you know Josh, you should call them and run your opinions by them, because I know both of them and they're both smart guys and they're both very ambitious guys. And the last thing that they're thinking is, if I decide that I want to take the next step in American politics, I'm going to be facing some brutal, brutal opposition. And they both know that. And they know it deep down and they know it well. So Stephen A., keep up your shit on sports. I enjoy it. I like it, but don't make a fool of yourself.
Why don't you just call him boy while you're at it? I mean, my God. But you know what? Good. Just give it the commentary that you really believe. And, you know, that makes it easier, because that is essentially what Mr. Carville was saying. Should it come as any surprise to anybody? But that's who he is, David. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. And clearly what Stephen A. said really pissed them off and really concerned them because they felt the need to send an attack dog out there to say something about it. If it wasn't of any consequence, they would have just ignored it. They wouldn't have addressed it. Why would they need to? Who the hell is Stephen A. Smith when it comes to political commentary? Enough that somebody like James Carville had to put the black man in his place. That's basically what he did. Talk about sports. That's your lane. You shouldn't be talking about anything else. You don't know shit. I don't know about,
dribble. Shut up and dribble.
I don't know about you, but like I said, I thought Stephen A. on that particular piece of commentary did know what he was talking about, and he was absolutely right.
Well, Carville would say that about anybody who was speaking against the party. That's what he's paid to do.
Absolutely. That's his job. And that's why he sounds like a flippin' moron, which should, again, come as no surprise.
Yeah.
Doug Grinbergs with the $2. Thank you so much. Stamp Stampede, Amendomatic, Stamp Mobile Status. I'm assuming that that's some reference to Mr. Cohen, who was here earlier.
Yes, we talked about that. He was talking about the stamping. Yes, that's why we brought it up.
Yalabite with the $2. If Trump 2000 returns in 2027, he can be amazing. I totally am amazing already. What are you talking about? And
you should feel bad about that, Tony D. That's actually almost like fighting words, man. What's with that? We're going to have a better explanation. And no, I was not filling the pool. I am in my camper. I am in Georgia. And it's my very first time using it. And I'm very first time hooked up. And it is so cold here, which has been fine. Like I've had a winter. It snowed yesterday. However, if I don't turn off the pump outside and then it freezes, then it could screw up the copper in the thing. And there's a thing. And so I don't get to have running water at night.
You know the thing.
So no, I am not filling a pool. I'm trying to not bust pipes.
And finally, $2 from Yalabite again. Thank you so much. The Dems' biggest issue is masculinity, no strong men. Well, look,
it's a problem. It is a problem.
Yeah, they have. The thing about the LGBTQ issue that I think got ignored by a lot of people is that it also was an anti-masculine movement in a lot of ways. And I think people want to pretend that that wasn't the case, but it sure looked that way to me.
But here's the problem, right? This is where I get kind of like a little bit touchy-feely about it, right? That needed to happen too, right? Like there needed to be a major increase acceptance for people to be able to be whoever the hell they are in public and not get crap for it, period. Whatever that looks like, not get discriminated against, not have, and we still have serious discrimination against the LGBTQ community. The problem is the people that jump on that as a political thing, like a slogan, like those people that are so condescending and snowflakey and annoying and with the pronouns and all this shit turns off people so much. And that actual just regular LGBTQ people who are just living their lives that are not part of that sort of democratic movement of people that are making it be a bigger deal in some ways than and just to make points. That's the problem. But I refuse to have anybody in that community penalized because some of their spokespeople are annoying as fuck.
Correct.
So that's the problem. And I know trans people and I know people that are not with any of that bullshit either. And their rights are still at risk. Right.
By the way,
that's the problem.
Again, we talk about the need to not address these commentators, but I will tell you that for those of you who obviously know who Brianna Wu is, I always thought it was a joke when people would go after her they would call her a tranny because she was a woman with, like a hard jawline and things like that. And it turns out that she is a transsexual. And at the end of the day, this is a person who is trying to have a meltdown on social media right now about the fact that she's a trans and people are giving her a hard time. The reason, Bree, that people are giving you a hard time is not that you're trans, is that you are a Zionist psychopath.
See, that's a very important, that's important nuance, right? Like, yeah. What?
And
Wait,
she
I don't
does
know
it
who
for,
that is. I'm not really sure I know who you're talking about.
no, she's just somebody who is one of those people that falls into the same category as the Amy Schumers and the Michael
Oh,
Rappaports of the
you mean
world.
grade D actors that are like nobody cares about?
Now, apparently, Brianna Wu is sort of like a known person in the Twitch world, like she's a
Oh.
gamer, if you will. But this is a person who I had pointed out back when you were running against Debbie that tried to come after you. She came after
I don't
you.
remember. She came after me. What did she do?
Yeah,
she said something about me
She
online.
made a video about you. You know, she was making this commentary.
Really? I
But
feel flattered. She made a video about me.
But the thing that pissed her off the most was
Yeah.
that I had at the time, I didn't know who she was and you didn't know who she was. So I
still
actually
don't know who she is.
When she was commenting, she was like talking about you. And then I quote tweeted it to like our whole audience. I said, does anybody know who this person is? And she, when I say she lost it, like she lost it.
Because let me tell you something. Don't feed a narcissist. That is the
You
best
know who
way.
I am.
That is the best way to just enrage them is you do not feed a narcissist. Oh, it's beautiful. But that is really fun. I can't believe she made a video about me. I'm like, kind of feel honored.
Well, a lot of people did. There are people that
But
have.
she's trans. She thinks I have an issue with the trans. I
No,
have an
she
issue with the
thinks that
trans.
you're.
I have no problem.
No, she has a problem with you supporting Hamas. You support Hamas.
Okay.
You're
So
right.
she's a Zio-Nazi, and that's the problem.
Yes, she is a
so
Zionist.
she didn't have an issue with something that you posted or anything about trans.
No, so I find it so.
The trans peoples.
I totally love the trans people.
I
are
love
great
the.
people.
Here's the thing. I equally like and dislike all people the same. Like I'm either in a mood where I'm just not like it has nothing to do. It's really, yeah. I kind of dislike all people equally.
We're not gonna do well. Yes, and I agree with that. But it also goes to show you the hypocrisy, the sheer hypocrisy of the worst commentators in politics, and we see it all the time. We see it from the MAGA chuds. We see it from the neoliberal scumsuckers, and then of course we see it the worst of all with the Zionazis. And Brianna Wu is a Zionazi, full blown.
Yeah,
full blown. Like if you look at everyone who comments on her posts, they're all connected to the Israel Brigade, if you will.
Yeah.
All of their names are Israeli. All of them. These are her people. And the reason I believe that she went down that road is because it pays. Because there's no other reason. That's the biggest reason why anybody does anything like that. Kind of like Fetterman. It's like, because it pays. It pays
then,
to be.
Then that's where people cross over into what we call the grifter, to go in the direction that will get you where you want to go, and you don't have an ideology, you're a grifter. That's the whole point. That's WCCC. That's content creators that just sit there and go with whatever direction gets them clicks when they don't really give a shit about helping people or covering things of importance. That's all levels of grift, because you're just in it to grift for yourself. You're not in it for any other reason. So
and on top of everything and on top of everything else, she claims that she's a Democrat, that she speaks for the Democratic Party. And this person, I'm telling you.
Well, then by definition, she's a grifter. If she's affiliated with the Democrats, then she's announcing her grifterdom just by saying, I'm a Democrat. Then by definition, you're a grifter at this point.
And she's a heck of a lot more transparent about where she really stands. And kudos to her for not hiding the fact that she thinks that the Democratic Party should be the party of Zionism. Okay, great. That's great. Because that only serves what we're trying to prove, the points that we're trying to put out there.
Kat, I thought, and I'm with you on this, Kat, I think the proper way to say is we're antisocial extroverts. We're antisocial extroverts. I feel you.
Which means you can take people in doses. That's basically what
Which means we're extremely good at dealing with people when we're out and mingling, and people find us personable, sort of like me going into any political thing, and I could be that. But I would prefer to not be with any of those people. I would prefer to just be left alone. But if I'm with people, I'm good at it. That's what it is. It's sort of like a curse. So we're antisocial extroverts.
We will cover
That's
Luigi we will cover Luigi Mangione on Monday. He returns to court tomorrow, so we'll see what happens.
Did we do our patron?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Already covered that.
Did you scroll our people?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
We are obviously. Well, there you go, Phil. That would explain a lot.
Oh, that's a reliable source right there. She's up
Anything
there. Her and Carville they are operatives of a corporatist party. So they're just
And hopefully-
operatives of capital.
and hopefully a class that is eventually going to die. That's all you can hope, because they provide nothing. In fact, they just make things worse. So with that said, make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to share and subscribe. Make sure that after we end our stream, that you leave a comment that you were here and that perhaps you enjoyed the live stream. And also share wherever you can. We would certainly appreciate that as well. On Monday, we may have, next week is going to be a candidates week of all things, interestingly enough. So we are going to talk about, well, we're going to be talking with Alan Branch, who's running for mayor of Panama City, Florida. He's a friend. That'll be a local candidate that we will talk to. And then on Thursday night, we will be talking with none other than Butch Ware, who is running on the Green Party ticket for governor of California. He's going to run for governor of California, so it's going to be great. So make sure you stick around for that. Obviously, Jen's connection has finally kicked. She's as frozen as Cherry Garcia. And on that note, we appreciate you all. Have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday. You may see me Sunday. Be on the lookout for that. Have a good one.